Two flight attendants are suing United Airlines, alleging that the company hand-selected a group of all-white, all-blonde, all-young flight attendants to accompany the Los Angeles Dodgers and other sports teams on private chartered flights that were being run by United Airlines. Now, one of the flight attendants is black, and the other flight attendant is mixed, black, Mexican, as well as Jewish. And they are both claiming that they were retaliated against by United Airlines executives in extremely inappropriate and extremely illegal ways whenever they make complaints about this. They say they complained because the flight attendants who went on these private chartered flights could earn up to 3 times the salary of other flight attendants. And they also got sports memorabilia, access to tickets to sports games, and other benefits that nobody else could get at United. And these flight attendants say they were trying to apply this program for more than 10 years. And when they ultimately got in after an entirely different lawsuit, they say the company froze them out and just created other ways to keep the flight attendants blonde, because they said that the players of the various sports teams for the major leagues that United was flying these for preferred a, quote, certain look among the flight attendants. I'm Kevin Kneupper. I'm an attorney at Kneupper & Covey, and I want to walk you through this lawsuit, what is being alleged in the complaint, and what the flight attendants are saying happened to them in the extreme abuses that they say that they suffered after they complained to United Airlines about what it was allegedly doing. Now, this is the lawsuit. You can see that it was filed in Los Angeles County Superior Court, which is a state court in California. Two plaintiffs are Darby Quezada and Todd, and they're suing United Airlines. But the LA Dodgers run into this because of their alleged preferences, which we will see as we go through this lawsuit. So if we go down here, you can see they're suing a number. They've got 11 different bases for their lawsuits. It's various kinds of racial or national origin or religious discrimination based on, and age discrimination as well, based on the conduct that they say that these United executives engaged in. So if we go down here, these are just sort of legal things that they have to put in the lawsuit. And then we get to the facts for what they're saying. They're saying that United Airlines has this charter airline program for professional sports teams, and they call it the in-flight charter program. They're saying that this includes not just collegiate sports teams, but professional ones for Major League Baseball, for the National Football League, but that it's been riddled with allegations of discrimination, racism, and sexism. They say they're not the first people to sue United over this, because they say in 2020, two entirely different flight attendants from California filed their own discrimination lawsuit. And they're claiming that the two plaintiffs here are saying that in that prior lawsuit, there were allegations that United staff dedicated crews for its athletic team charter flights, but they only wanted flight attendants who, quote, fit a specific visual image. And that meant young, white, female, and blonde and blue-eyed flight attendants. And this got some media coverage. You can see they're quoting USA Today, which was covering the prior one, and this one's getting coverage as well. Then they're saying that despite having gotten this lawsuit, United just kept doing these discriminatory practices because that's what they thought the players wanted, or claimed they thought the players wanted. So Miss Todd, Todd, is one of these two flight attendants. She's 50 years old, and she's African American. And she says she's served with United for 17 years. She has an exemplary record. She's always getting positive reviews, and she got a recent promotion. Then you have Darby Quezada, who is pretty much the same amount of service, nearly 16 years, and she says that she is mixed race. She's 44 years old. She's of Mexican, black, and Jewish descent. And all that will come into play when you start seeing some of the things that they're alleging that the United executives were saying about them. They say that this charter program is highly coveted. Okay, people, if you're a flight attendant, you want to do this at United because of some of these perks that they say you get. You get higher per diem compensation. If you don't know what that is, if you've ever worked for a company, if you're traveling, a lot of times they give you, per diem just means per day. So you'll get like a budget, like you can maybe spend $100 a day, let's say, it's just an example, on meals, on hotels, on just random stuff you have to spend when you're flying around. They're saying that in this charter program, you get a lot more of that than when you're normally a flight attendant. They also say you get sporting ticket events, you get field passes, you get rare sports merchandise because the players will just hand it to you, and that they can get triple their compensation if a flight attendant manages to get into this in-flight charter program. But they say that before they call it there's prior lawsuit they're talking about, the Dodgers version of this program had virtually all white crews. And they say that each of these two flight attendants who are suing in this case tried for more than a decade each to try to apply to this program. And they say they had the experience, but they kept getting dismissed, or their requests kept getting dismissed, and they kept getting rejected because specifically that they're not white. Now, in this lawsuit, they're alleging that when United got sued back in 2020 over the exact same thing, they say they kind of tried to paper up and make it look like they were complying with or changing things, but that they didn't actually do it. And again, everything in here is allegations. We're going to see some pretty extreme allegations that are occurring later as we go through this, but that ultimately gets decided by the jury. This is just the plaintiff's version. We don't have United's version. So they're saying that United tried to make people think that they were diversifying this. They selectively started interviewing flight attendants of color, this says, and these two flight attendants did get interviewed, and they were selected to be part of the, quote, dedicated crews for this Dodgers program. And Quezada says she was selected in 2020, which is right after that other lawsuit, and that Todd was selected in 2022. But they say that this was just temporary, and they're accusing United of like changing it again back in 2022. Once kind of the heat is off, they start adding white attendants back to the dedicated crew, but those attendants didn't have to interview like Todd and Quezada did. They say that they got treated more favorably. They're listing some names of some people that they say got in without really having to get interviewed. And then they also start listing names of these executives at United who they say were managers, and that they were picking them specifically because they're young, thin, blonde-haired, and blue-eyed. And Todd and Quezada say they started complaining. So they start saying, why is this, why are they added to this dedicated list when they're all blondes and we had to go do interviews and they're just sort of being popped on here by these executives? They're talking specifically about this one flight coordinator, Amy Lagera. They say that she told Quezada that she was shocked that this other executive, Scott Akasaki, said hi to her since he only prefers white and Asian flight attendants. And they claim that Miss Lagera, had threatened Miss Quezada in 2021, saying that because this other executive, the Scott guy, only wants white and Asian flight attendants, I can remove you. I have the power. You are nothing. Then they say that after they start getting fewer flight attendants or flights as part of this program after they make the complaints. And then in 2023, they say that Todd gets demoted from a, quote, dedicated crew to a dedicated list, and that they start leapfrogging more white, blonde, blue-eyed young flight attendants ahead of the minority flight attendants who have seniority, who are then on the bottom of the, quote, dedicated list. And then they change this list again, according to the plaintiffs in this lawsuit, and say that now it's a top 5 list for the Dodgers. And there is the dedicated list, but there would be random selection for who got to be on the Dodgers flights, and they were no longer guaranteed to be on there. But the top 5 were only the young white female blondes, and everyone else got dedicated to or demoted to the dedicated list. And they say they have not been randomly selected. They are just picking the blondes, not picking anyone who is a flight attendant of color. And that's causing them to lose compensation, according to this. They say that there's more retaliation, that Quezada gets removed from the program entirely, and that they started seeing extreme discrimination in the workplace from people who were kind of mad about this because they made the complaints. And here's where we start getting to some of the really bad stuff that they're saying other people did in retaliation. They say that, so Todd says, and this is the African-American flight attendant, she says that they started calling her the, quote, flights maid. These are other employees and management who are making these decisions. They say they started telling her, go clean parts of the plane. They were threatening to spill a tray of hot coffee and tea on her, and were ignoring her during flights and meetings. And they say that they've experienced all kinds of stuff like this. One of Quezada says, she's again the one who's of part Mexican heritage. She says she was speaking Spanish with a Dodgers player on one of the flights, but a United employee, Vanessa Krikorian, starts berating her and saying, stop speaking Spanish with this guy because, quote, we are in America. And again, she's of Mexican heritage, and they're referring to her as a maid, according to her. And she says that they told her that they needed a, quote, Mexican to clean the bathrooms. And that when she got hurt by this, which obviously she would be if that's true, that she was told not to be so soft or passive-aggressive. Then she also says that because she's part Jewish and she's a granddaughter of Holocaust survivors, that there were non-Jewish employees of United who saw that she had ordered a kosher meal on one of the flights, and they started saying, quote, you know Jesus died for you even if you don't believe and you don't look Jewish, which are not things that you shouldn't be remotely saying them anywhere, but in a workplace, that's going to cause severe legal problems for United if that actually happened. And again, this is their version, but the jury will decide what occurred here, and there's probably going to be data about who was on which flights. And so if this really was all blondes, there's going to be information about that. Now, Quezada also says that she was told, and again, so she's the one who's mixed, so she's part African-American as well. She says that other people on these flights had said, Darby, watch what you're eating because your black hip/butt can hit people in the aisle. And they say that this Amy Laguerra, that's again the one that they were talking about earlier, who's the flight coordinator, wouldn't give them tips, that they would be getting envelopes of cash, particularly from this guy from the Dodgers, Justin Turner, and that she never gave the tips to them or any of the minority flight attendants. They're saying she kept them or gave them only to the blondes. It's not kind of clear from this paragraph where they're saying they went, but that they didn't get any of the tips on the flights that they were on. They say that the managers were belittling them, and as a result of all the stuff that they've been told and had happened to them, that they're having severe panic attacks, vomiting, migraines, and all kinds of just loss of emotional distress plus loss of earnings, which is what happens if it's really a 3 times difference in the amount of salary and benefits that you get, then that would be a huge loss of earnings if you only get a few of these flights. And we don't have United's response to this yet, so we don't know what they're going to say. They did settle the prior lawsuit, so the one that was filed before this is done. But that doesn't necessarily mean that people have admitted guilt. They have issued a public statement saying, hey, we have none of this happened, and we're going to fight this lawsuit vigorously. So it does look like they will be filing something and will be trying to push back on this. What happens in the end, we don't know. They'll go through discovery. They'll go try to figure out what happened here and go through these witnesses. It looks like the Dodgers are off the hook because you can see here that they're not being accused of anything other than the players sort of apparently wanting a certain type, or whether they find anything about that during discovery, who knows. You want to see more about lawsuits like this or other crazy legal cases, hit subscribe.